So, part two, unlocking potential. Okay, so Madam Faraliza, this is for you. Okay, in the context of educational empowerment, right? So, can you share with us, are there any success stories from MIJ Hub where education has played a pivotal role in nurturing the potential of specialist children?
Okay, MIJ Hub has been around for about almost 13 years. So throughout 13 years, there's a lot of stories, success stories that happen, right? And of course, there's two significant ones. One is where this child, she came to us at the age of 3 or 4 years old, just being diagnosed. And when she came, there was a lot of meltdown, crying. She's not able to express her needs, her wants, and therefore lead to meltdown. So I remembered with her for about 2-3 weeks in a class where she just cried for 3 hours, and I was there like trying to console her and trying. But that's how it is because they're not able to express in words. Therefore, that's a way they communicate with us. Yeah, like I want this, but I can't tell you. You can't understand me. Therefore, I will cry and cry and cry. But after a few years, she attended our early intervention program. That's where she started to come with sounds, and then from sounds like one word, and from one word to a few words. So now she's already in primary 5 in one of the sped school, and she, my god, she can come to me and tell me what's her interest. She's into anime, she can even role play that particular scene in that particular workshop. And I was very proud of her and very grateful also to her parents, because parents involvement is also important, because must come from the school, and it's a collaborative team lah. It cannot just work from a school, but also the parents work hard as well. So whatever intervention that we actually tell the parent, they actually carry out at home, so you can see the progress of a child. Another one is when he came to us, he's already about in his youth, whereby he's from ITE. So the mom told us that he didn't know what to do even after ITE. So the mom decided to continue for him to study. So he came and joined our RAP program, Work Readiness Adult program. He's a very quiet person. Um, he's socially awkward. He doesn't want to speak up. But after going through the program, he's able to speak up his mind. His thought process gets better, and through all the program, like introducing the various skills and so on, he's now working in one of the at Baraka, I think Baraka shop, doing inventory. So, and when we met him, he's able to smile now, able to say, "Yes, I'm fine." How are you? Yeah, which is also in something that is very significant progress. So I'm happy to see when people graduated from the program and able to lead meaningful life. Yeah, and all thanks to the teachers, of course, and the parents, of course. Yeah.
I think for him to be now that he's able to express himself, I think it's easier on the teachers end. I believe,
Yeah.
because if not, the teachers will have to think like, how, what is he thinking? Like, is he okay or not?
It's
But
only
then,
from the teachers, I think. I think it's when he start to work, right? It's also important for the employer side, because if he's not able to express that he needs help, that is difficult to see. But the fact that he's able to express that he needs help in certain areas of the task, that will allow better communication between employers and employees
correct.
with special needs. Yeah. So the part of seeking for help, expressing his needs, his wants, and also maybe share some ideas. Yeah, and that is very important when you actually work in the workspace. Yeah.
Okay, and then next question is for Dr. Chen. Okay, so Dr. Chen, how does healthcare contribute to the journey of specialist individuals? So could you expand on the holistic aspect of healthcare in supporting them?
Okay, so I think perhaps when people first think about healthcare, the first thing that comes to their mind is medical needs.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
medications, and things like that. But again, I think just to re-emphasize that actually health is defined as biopsychosocial health by WHO, which means that we look at biological, psychological, and social factors in determining a person's health outcome. Yeah, so I think for people with intellectual disability in particular, actually, in trying to promote positive health and positive well-being, we have to look at all of these factors, in a very, very interrelated and integrated manner. Yeah, and that's why healthcare needs to be holistic and integrated. We need to look at the medical issues that they are facing, but we also need to look at the communication gaps that they face and the limitations that they have. We also have to try and understand how they feel, their emotions. The fact that they have intellectual disability does not mean that they have no emotions. In fact, they have oftentimes far more powerful emotions than the rest of us, because they relate to the world through their emotions and through relationships. And then of course, a quick thing that always comes to mind when we think about social factors as well is, of course, the family, right? If you have a healthy, happy, caregiver,
correct.
then you have a far higher chance of having a happy, healthy child or adult with intellectual disability, and vice versa. So that's why I think, first of all, we must understand that health is already a holistic concept to begin with. Then the second thing I think about health that is really, really important, that sometimes people don't think about, is that it permeates every single aspect of our lives. Like how we always say, particularly as we grow older in life, right, that the most important thing in life is health. If you have good health, you can do anything. So if an adult with intellectual disability has good health, then they can participate well, be very engaged in their day activity center, or in their shelter workshop, or in their supported employment, or in their open employment. But if they do not have good health, then they will not be able to do well. They may miss days, and then that's going to affect so many other things about them, right? In terms of their psychosocial well-being as well. So I think overall health truly permeates every aspect of all of our lives. And for people with intellectual disability, definitely.
So it's like healthy body, healthy mind.
That's right. And I think the key thing is that, even though people with intellectual disability have a disability, right? They have cognitive and communication limitations. But the fact is that they can live very fulfilling lives as well. And that they need to be empowered to do that. And we need to give them choices to be able to make choices for themselves and to live the life that is meaningful to them. So that's what it is.
Actually, I have one question. Can I ask you? We talk about medical aspect in terms of physical, physical and physical, more about the physical, right? What about mentally? Because what happened is that there are people with disability, right? Like autism, they come with mental challenge. The fact that they always feel that the need to feel safe, and people around here are trying to hurt me and so on, and that's something that also stopped them from getting open employment. How that Happy Hearts able to help
address that
issue?
I mean, that's a good question, because I think again, it's the definition of what we consider the biological factors and the medical needs. So for us, when we look at medical needs, we look at physical needs, physical medical needs, mental medical needs, as well as oral health medical needs. So it's actually these three areas: physical, mental, and oral. And they are all very closely interrelated. And the example of individuals with autism is a very real one, because individuals with autism, sometimes they may have anxiety, right? Because this world is so difficult for people with autism to understand, right? Because of the difficulties of social communication. So for us, if let's say we have an individual come to us, the first thing we would do is we'll look at the physical needs, and we would address the things that need to be addressed. The next thing we'll look at is the mental health needs, and then we will also then address it. And then the oral health needs, and then the behavior, communication, function, psycho-emotional needs, and we'll look at all of those things one step at a time. And we will do it one step at a time, because that is the best way to do it. Because people with intellectual disability have difficulty communicating to us, right? And we also have difficulty communicating back to them. So that's why we have to take things one step at a time, so that we can also be quite certain that we are addressing what they need.
Yeah.
We need to monitor and review their behaviors and things like that. And it may sound like it's very tedious, but the truth is that when we actually do this, ultimately, majority of the time, we can actually help the individual get to a place of well-being. And then that can be sustained because we have gone through that process of trying to figure it out step by step, which means that even if something happens the next time, we can go back to our steps. And we as I always tell people, it's an investment of time. And it is an extremely worthwhile investment.
One more question.
Sorry. Yes.
So you say that in that process, right, where you are helping this individual, okay, helping individual is one thing, and then at a point of time whereby the individual gets well, example in terms of well-being, right, then when he goes out to work, but the people, like the employer, will not be able to understand that. So how does that the process able to involve apart from the family members as well?
Okay. So for us, right, when let's say the individual, so definitely working with the family is a continued process throughout the entire journey, because the family is also the one that gives us a lot of feedback, and we work very closely with them. Then depending on where this individual is going, let's say the person is going to a day activity center or a shelter workshop or in open employment, we would also engage those partners directly. In fact, we engage them from the word go.
Ecosystem,
It's a complete ecosystem.
Wow.
So actually from the word go, from the moment the patient enrolls in our service, in that sense, we will get their permission for us to reach out to all the other partners that are supporting them. So we start the collaborative process and the communication process with the other partners right from the beginning. So we talk to them, we also gather information from them because they may know things about the individual that we don't know yet, right? And then when we have information, we would share it with them as well. And once we have arrived at and throughout that process of trying to help that person achieve well-being, we will work together. You know, we would get maybe the job coach or the colleagues or the manager at the workplace or the training officer at the DAC to actually work with us. So as to allow this individual to thrive wherever he or she is. And we do this because we understand that people with intellectual disability and autism are very environment specific.
That's right.
Something that we teach them in the clinic setting may not work in the home setting, and it may not work in the work setting, may not work in the DAC setting. So because we understand this, so we work very closely with all the different partners.
What's the success rate like?
High.
So like just talking like normal. No, I'm thinking about the collaboration now.
High. Actually, high.
Wow.
The success rate is actually high.
How do you monitor that in terms of do you have a like specific
Okay, so that's another good question, because clearly to do all these things that I'm describing to you, right, a doctor alone is grossly insufficient. As I always tell people, when we are supporting particularly vulnerable and complex population groups, in terms of their healthcare, a doctor alone is really insufficient. So I have a team. I have nurses, social workers, therapists, and other staff that actually support this work. And we are very intentional. My team is very intentional in communicating and in collaborating with other partners. And I think our success rate is high because our motto is this, you see, that we want people, including the service partners and our collaborators, to be able to do what they are good at doing. So we do not, and what we want to do is to be able to support their limitations. So we would do our best to try and also match in terms of what we can support and how we can support them in supporting the individual as well. And I think ultimately, because we are aligned, we come together with a common goal. We put the person and the family at the center of this entire thing. And if we say that we are all coming together to achieve positive health and well-being for this individual, then we all are on board the same boat, right? And we move towards the same direction. And I would say that, I think because we are very clear about what we are trying to do, our objective is very clear. we also try our best to be person-centered, not only to our patients but and the families, but also to the service providers. So I think that in general, yes, our success rate is high.
That's good.
Yeah.
Actually got a lot of questions, no? But I mean, a show, not my show. Because I remembered I visited one of your patient. I remember visiting one of your client, and he's already 40 plus, and he has autism as well as ID, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I also understand from the mom that he went to school only for about a few months, and then the mom withdraw him, and until to date he's not going to school. So when from my observation, just that 1 hour, a lot of things he's not doing on his own. Simple things like when he play toys, he's not keeping it. The sister, the older sister, have to keep it for him. And also feeding wise, he's not able to feed. So my question is like, there are parents who are like that. First, they may go to school, but in the denial stage whereby well, my son is going to grow, I mean, he's going to be out of this phase, you know. And if there's more and more of such parents, right, how will it affect the community, and how does Happy Heart is able to help that community?
Okay, so I would say
That, sure.
No, I mean, these are great questions. So I would say that first of all, if we look at the group that we serve, okay, so we serve adults, okay, and adults we mean 18 years old and above, because 18 years old is generally the cutoff age for special schools in Singapore. First of all, why do we not support the children, even though children have needs as well? But I think because the children have a more robust support system compared to the adults with intellectual disability. So that's why our focus is on the adults. And interestingly, our age range for our patients, okay, is from 18 years old to 92 years old. Our oldest patient with intellectual disability is 92 years old.
Long life.
With mild intellectual disability. And she's married, she's got children, and some of them have also got intellectual disability. And then some of our patients have got intellectual disability plus autism. Some of them have intellectual disability plus cerebral palsy. So comorbidities, right? And the group that you're describing is actually a group that we definitely see a significant number of. The group that is around this age, in their 40s, and they are kind of emerging from the community. And for many years, many of them have actually been at home. They have not actually gone to school, or even if they had dropped out, or they had attempted an adult center and then they had stopped, exactly like this case. So actually there are quite a number of patients like that we actually see. So to answer that question, I think first of all, we look at that group that has these issues, right? So the first thing we do when we enter a family like this is to again understand their needs and also where they're coming from. And also the barriers that they face with regards to accessing certain services. So for example, in this particular case that you described, one big reason is that mom herself, who's elderly, has got this idea in her mind that her son is difficult to take care of. So why should she put him somewhere else where other people may also have difficulty caring for him? She doesn't want to burden other people. So you see, that's one example, right? Another example that we have commonly is that they are very protective of the child. They feel that if this child enters into a day center, then they may get bullied, and because they cannot communicate so well, then they won't even know, the family won't even know.
That's a mindset
so that's right. So these two are actually mindset, kind of issues that are actually harder to work on than actually concrete things like finances, physical, like just transport, things like that. So for every family, we are very person-centered and family-centric. We would do our best to understand the perspective from the family's perspective. And then we would also try and then weigh it out with the person with intellectual disabilities, well-being and autonomy. And we would try to balance it for everyone. So maybe if the person's well-being is very negative, then we would push the family a lot harder. But if the person's well-being is quite positive, despite being in a situation that maybe we will feel is may not be so optimal. Yeah, then we won't push so hard, and we will just slowly pace with the family. Yeah, because ultimately, what are we trying to achieve, right? Positive health, positive well-being,
Yep,
happy,
yep.
healthy, happy,
That's right.
safe families.
That's right.
Yeah, and if we can achieve that, then we can continue to journey with these families and support them in terms of their needs. So I think that's sort of where we are at. Yeah, and whatever is required, let's say to support mindset shifts,
Right.
let's say counseling, let's say psychotherapy, let's say
Yeah.
other forms of support,
Mhm.
then we will bring it in as well. Yeah, so in a way, it's almost like whatever they need in order to help achieve that goal, we would then try
Cater to it.
and cater to it. Yeah. So we are very targeted also in our approach. And then maybe just to add on one additional part is the question you asked is how do we deal with this or cope with this, right? Yeah. So that's also why the work that we do is also not only for the older caregivers, but imagine if our youngest patient is 18. That means the caregivers are probably in their 40s,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what we hope to be able to do is that when we start supporting them young as well, and the caregivers still have more energy, then we would be able to shift the profile 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road,
Yep.
such that
Yep.
10 to 20 years down the road, we will see less of individuals and families
Minimize them.
who
it's
do
true.
not have sufficient support,
True.
and more families who have more sufficient and robust support and are also more empowered to seek out what they need. So that's actually our goal. Yeah.
Did that lead to the challenges? There's one question about challenges, right?
Yeah.
You're asking me.
Yeah, there's one challenge.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lena.
No,
I'm trying
it's
to
okay.
make things
Uh-huh.
more
It's
informative.
Okay, because like just now you mentioned, there are, I mean, like in terms of like the mindsets. So one of the mindset is that they are being like protective of their child, right? So are there instances where, let's say, a family comes to you to seek help, but then they are also protective of the child. Then when let's say your team assess the child and then realize that there needs to be have other specialists that come in to help, and but then the family decide that okay, because I am very protective of my child, I don't want like other people to like come in to support, and then in the end they decide not to like proceed with the so-called the treatment, I would say.
Okay.
Then like from there, like how do you continue to like so-called hold on to them, or do you just okay, I mean if the family is really reluctant like that, then we let it be, so like they are on their own back.
Okay. So again, I mean, good question. Usually what I would the first thing I would say is that there are always reasons why people resist. Yeah, there are always reasons why people refuse. And I think for families and parents of adults with intellectual disability, actually one very common reason I find is because they are very afraid of being failed again.
Yeah.
They are
Correct.
very afraid of being disappointed one more time. Yeah, I remember years ago, I spoke to a group of caregivers, and that was before I managed to establish Happy Hearts and ID Health, the clinic. And I was telling this group of caregivers about my plans, and I remember at the end of it, one elderly mother looked at me and she said, yeah, it's very good, doctor. It's very good that you want to do all of these things. But I think maybe, why don't you do it first? Then you come and tell us about it. Yeah, and I could understand, why she said that. Yeah, because she's gone through so many years of trying to support her child, from the time when the child was born, through school, through adulthood, and throughout all those years, the parents are constantly speaking for their child, advocating for them, fighting for them, and they have to almost fight against so many misconceptions, misperceptions about their child. Yeah. And I think sometimes they get very tired of having to do that. Yeah, they feel like people may not value their child. Yeah, they may not see the value in their child. I think that's one. The second thing is that they feel that people come and go as well.
Mhm.
Like oftentimes
Right.
somebody says they will help them, and
Yeah.
then
Mm.
maybe a while later the person moves on from the job. Yeah, and then but by then the parents have already given this person their trust, and then the person moves on, and then the parent feels like now I have to tell my story all over
Over
again.
again.
And they may feel like over all these years all of you come and go, yeah, but we are still here and we're still struggling. Yeah, and so I feel two things lah. One is that I think they need to build trust with
True.
whoever it is that is supporting them.
Correct.
Yeah, and from a healthcare provider perspective as well, they need to trust us first.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we need to earn that trust as well.
Mhm.
It's not something that we should take for granted, because in the health profession, people very quickly share very personal and very intimate things with you. Yeah. But it's not to be taken for granted. It's
Correct.
actually something very precious and something that we're very privileged to do, and we need to
Mhm.
earn that trust as well from these families.
Sure.
So I think that's one. So building trust is very important. Second thing is what I mentioned earlier about value. I have families who, when they come to see us, they will say things like, "There is nothing much you can do for my child. Yeah, that she's just like that. That's it. There's nothing much you can do." Yeah, and anyway, I'm very embarrassed. I'm very ashamed even, of a child like
Yeah.
this.
Mm.
Yeah. But that's not how we feel, of course. Right? That's not how we feel. Yeah, every single human being has intrinsic value
True.
and beauty and
Yeah.
worth,
It's how you see it, huh?
and that's how we see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so because we see it, yeah, we believe in it, we live by it, we demonstrate it. So I think some of these families have also said to us that, yeah, they no longer feel judged, after
Yeah.
they get to know us
Yeah.
by us. Yeah, and I think it's through these two things, the trust that we slowly build with them, and also they come to realize that their child is of value, and they are also of value as human beings. Yeah, that we start being able to facilitate some of these things that we actually
Right.
want to do with them, and for them. Yeah, so it is extremely rare that we have had families that have refused everything that we or what we have recommended. It's extremely rare. Yeah, and it's also extremely rare that we decide that a family is not someone we can support. Yeah, yeah, because ultimately it's about human relationships.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Actually, I can relate to Dr. Chen. Because as a caregiver, we talk about first is the trust and the value, right? So me being a caregiver as well, that's something that will motivate you to work with that particular therapist or doctor or even a school. Because if you come to a school whereby you can some sort as a caregiver you can sort of like gauge whether there's trust or not. First, because if the person really active listen to you with your issues that you have, and then try to customize or accommodate to your needs, right? That's something that and listen to you, and not like judging you. That's something that a caregiver would want to feel, right? And the value part is where if the person is able to see the value in my child, that's more that I feel that my child will work best with you as a therapist, as a doctor, or even as a teacher in the school. Yeah, so without these two, I think it will that's the barrier lah. That's the barrier. Without the trust and the value that you see in my child, yeah, that's where the parent will feel intimidated as a caregiver, and also shun away from the community as well as from all the professionals that they can work with. Yeah, then having said that, right, I think I'm also blessed because I'm a caregiver, and therefore when parents come to MIJ, right, they see me as a caregiver. They don't see me as a business person, which I'm very thankful, because then they know that, oh, you have a child who has autism, and therefore I also have a child with autism. You can relate with me. I may not understand what they're going through, because every child is different, every life is different. You see, we brought up in a different way, walks of life and so on. But the fact that I can relate to the parent and able to see the value in the child, and sometimes they come to us, they are already in the part where they're depressed. And like, I go everywhere, but it failed, like you say. You see, like, so what else can you provide? Yeah, but the fact that they see that I'm a caregiver as well, that really helps. And that's where the trust is built. And when the trust is built, I'm able to also understand or relate to the child. And that's where the value is built. Yeah. So I think you have to work both ways. Yeah. That's where we come to a point where we should collaborate.
Yeah, because I think we have very similar values.
In terms of thoughts, that's right.
and we,
It's too very
To
important.
understand the child is important, like
Yes.
how he or she is, and then to understand the parents' needs, like how what they want the best for their child is also important. I mean, for both healthcare and also for education side.
Because a lot of parents come sometimes, they give up their child already, like what you
Yes.
say. And it's sad for me as a caregiver to hear that. So usually in one of the questions that I asked in the interview, not about what to improve on, it's like, what do you see in your child? What's the strength you see in child? And a lot of parents cannot answer that. So they can answer one strength and the rest all come back to, and I have to keep redirect them. Okay, what's your strength? What's the strength? So it's kind of like sad to hear, but again, like what Miss Dr. Chen said, right? Yeah, they have enough already. Like throughout the years, like it's like, what else can I do to my child? When other people cannot see the value of my child, what's more, I need that motivation that people can do, reassurance that, hey, yes, what I feel about my child is exactly what others feel about my child. Then I can move on. Yeah. Deep,
Quite
very deep.
very like interlinked, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, then that leads to my next question. Okay, so so we believe that there is an interdependence of both education and healthcare. So you both of you have shared your from your areas, I would say. Yeah. So how do they fit in together? Maybe you can just highlight some of them. Yeah, and then the importance of these joint aspects, and also can you provide examples of real life cases where these two elements converge to create transformational outcomes? So like I think just now you mentioned that physical need is important, and then for yourself, Madam Farah, you mentioned that MIJ focuses on using movement in the curriculum
and social emotional.
so
also.
so in a way like physical and then like movement, so like how do they fit it?
Okay. I mean, maybe I can go first now. Yeah. So I think maybe again, first of all, it's the question is about education and health, right? And how it interlinks, right? So again, we go back to the definition of education, right? Like what is education? Like education, to be seen in the broader sense, is really not just about academic skills, right? It's about knowledge. It's about skill sets, for life, essentially. That's what education is for, is to equip us for life. Yeah, so the whole idea of education is also about lifelong education, about continued learning throughout life, that all of us as individuals, including people with intellectual disability, and in fact, sometimes even more so people with intellectual disability, require, So how does this relate to health? So, I mean, we talk a lot about health education, right? Yeah. So maybe just a quick example about how educating the many different parties involved in healthcare can actually then lead to really positive outcomes. Yeah. So I had a patient who is about 30 years old. He has got autism. And he's nonverbal, and he presented to us actually with agitation and aggression. Yeah. So agitation and aggression, once again, to many people may be like, oh, is that a health problem? But yes, it should be seen as a health problem, because this individual is not in positive well-being. And there may be biopsychosocial factors that are contributing to this. So that was exactly what it was. This individual actually had constipation, had a lot of discomfort, and also had a lot of anxiety related to all of these symptoms, plus the inability to express this and explain this, to the people around him, including his parents, and his sibling who love him so much. And he also couldn't express this to the staff that he knew so well at the day activity center. Yeah, and so in a way he resorted to behaving in a certain manner. Because he had to in some way let us know that all was not well.
That's right.
And so when we went through that whole process of deciphering this
Yeah.
piece by piece, okay, then we figured it out, you know? Yeah. And so we treated the constipation, we treated the anxiety, we tried to help him with his communication, and then we looked at his psycho-emotional support and things like that.
Yeah.
And then we educated
Mm.
three different parties here. Okay. Number one, we educated his parents and his family
Yeah.
about how to monitor his symptoms, how to give him medications if needed, and how to help him alleviate the symptoms or calm him down,
Yeah.
you know, when things were difficult for him.
Mhm.
We communicated with the day activity center
Mhm.
staff, you know, to empower them as well. To say that even though he has got health problems, he
Yeah.
can continue to go and continue to do very well.
Mm.
And we also taught them how to monitor, how to review,
Mm.
you know, yeah, and how to feedback to us as well.
Mm.
And who was the third party that we educated? It was the individual himself.
Mm.
Again, you know, we mustn't think that because a person has intellectual disability or autism that
Yeah.
they cannot be educated,
Yeah.
because they can.
That's right.
Yeah, so when we managed to express and communicate to him that this was the problem, and he could understand that yes, indeed, this was his problem, then we taught him how to ask for help, how to go to his parents and say that he was in pain and that he needed medication. Yeah. And so then he was able to then indicate to his parents and to the staff at the DAC setting
Yeah.
that he was in discomfort and that he needed some
Yeah.
some help.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is an example really of how health and education in that sense actually comes very closely interrelated in a
Yeah.
way that I think people don't generally think about.
Think about it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
very much because in a school setting, right? I always also believe that health and education really relates. So, for example, right, if one of the students, for example, having anxiety, for example, right, so how do we educate the child to express to us that he's in anxiety? Like what Dr. Chen said just now, that doesn't mean that he's an ID, he cannot be educated. They can with various approach. So as teachers, as educators, we need to know what approach suits the child best, that they can communicate when they are feeling anxiety, that can be educated. Yeah, so we use like packs, visuals and so on and so forth. And also movement also plays a part. Why? Because I also through experience, right, I've seen students who are on the heavy side, that will have an impact on his mobility. When he's not able to move, therefore its impact on his capacity to think, his thought process will be delayed. So all these come along. So to educate him is to teach him some movement, so to be able to awake the brain, to awake his awareness and so on. So education and health really comes together. They really gel. It's like they come together. If not, things will not be able to move, and the child will not progress. Yeah. So I think parents need to know that as well, because a lot of parents now, I know parents are very busy, right? They have all sorts of things to manage, and there are times whereby the gadget becomes one of the tools. And so nowadays our children don't move. So how do we educate the parents that, hey, your child need to move because it's good for their health? Yeah, so that's another challenge. Doctor, maybe you can elaborate on that. I do agree with me, because I see like even
Yes.
for our interviews of gadget. So
Yes,
wow.
yes.
So the parents, the moment we ask the students to move, they cannot move. I even have this particular workshop for parents, how to play with your child. The moment there's one activity we give scarf. You know the scarf to the parents. And okay, with this scarf, create activity. How to create activity with the scarf? I say, oh. Yeah, so these are the things that that parents need to be educated as well. Yeah, correct.
So it really takes a village to raise.
No nation, not village.
Nation.
No, for nation.
It takes a nation to
Like what Dr.
raise
Chen said, everybody is involved.
Yeah, everybody's
It's a
involved.
nation.
It's hard work, but it's a worthwhile.
Worthwhile.
Yes, definitely.
True.
Definitely.
Okay, here.